Hey folks, Toby here, and this is going to be another video in the series how to Jebus Outcast, how to play in one hero template in Heroes Free. And now that I've already overviewed in these series like the generic basics, like the secondary skills that are good or bad and are, slippers category, we'll be going through each faction one by one. So for a bit of context, throughout these videos, I'll be referring to sort of their tier list, like how people usually rate each faction compared to another. I think I'll edit it somewhere on the screen, there, whatever. So yeah, that's just a bit of context. And in these following videos about each faction I'll be explaining why they are rated as such, what's so good about them, what's so bad about them, and how you usually end up playing those, I suppose. So yeah, in this video we'll be talking about today we're talking about Cove, and it's, another upper mid-tier, lower top-tier faction. And I think what these factions at this, tier have in common is that they can do pretty much everything really well. However, they're just missing a little bit of, oomph to be the actual top tier. Like there's certain things that they just fall a bit short on. So in Cove's case is you can go for, you can have a pretty good tempo, but the box quality is not as great as something like Fortress, so you usually don't have, the best tempo. Now, you can also go for dwelling gaming and have a really solid, like Nyx's power stack, which are incredible late game. However, they're still not the strongest units in the late game. They don't have the speed, they don't have the health, they're not the heaviest hitting ones, so they have their own issues. And, compared to something like the bears, the ancient behemoths, they're not the best. So again, they can do a lot of things, but they will always fall short just a bit somewhere. Even their heroes, like the ones that are available, they have something bad about them. They're just subpar. So yeah, again, like everything in general is pretty good, but they are missing just a bit to be actual top tier. So with that said, let's start with, just like any other faction we did, going through the heroes first. So for Cove, actually, it's one of the few factions that has a really solid caster available, which is Eovashius. And the specialty is Clone, which is a very, it's Hoda specific. I mean, the entire faction is Hoda specific. But anyway, so the specialty is Clone, which when you cast Clone for the first time in any battle, it basically creates another copy. So instead of just creating one copy, you create two, which allows you to choose quite a few things. Like, for example, you're doing a Dragon Utopia, you have a really solid power stack of like 8 Iasids or Nyxes, you just clone them and suddenly, 3 dragons are dead on round 1. So that is pretty amazing. You can cheese quite a bit with Eovashius. With that said, for most people, the preferred choice is the Might Heroes. Now, again, something specific about Cove is that actually there are 3 Might Heroes available, I suppose, or picked by the people. So in total, making it a choice between 4 heroes which you want to go for. Probably making this the most diverse faction out of all in Jebus Outcast in the current meta. So the availability that you have is Jeremy with specialty Cannon. Cannon is, just an extra unit. It does quite a bit of damage, so that's kind of nice. With that said, you are forced into basic artillery, kind of a sort of a dead skill. So, it's like solid, but not ideal. Then you have Elor, which has a very nice synergy going on. So first of all, your specialty Stormbirds, due to which you start with an extra few of those Stormbirds. And pretty much on day 1, regardless of which faction you go for, I guess like Annabelle is an exception, but pretty much always you build Stormbirds dwelling in your main. So you buy the Stormbirds, and on day 1 you usually end up with like 10 Stormbirds, which is, it's an amazing power stack already. Like most other factions, something like Inferno, something like Necropolis, they both on day 1 pretty much always build tier 4 dwelling, and they have, 4 tier 4 units. You have 2.5 times that. So it can actually do quite a bit of work, and then it also synergizes with tactics really, really well, allowing you to use the speed of the Stormbirds to the fullest. So basically on day 1, with 10 Stormbirds, if you're fighting a ranged power stack, due to tactics, you're able to reach and block those ranged creatures on round 1, which is pretty amazing, allowing you to take way tougher fights that most other heroes across any faction really would be struggling with. So it has a really cool trick for early on. Obviously, again, tactics is not an ideal late game skill. So again, while there is some nice synergy going on here, due to the fact that you probably won't end up with a Stormbird Iacid power stack as well as tactics being subpar, again, this is where Cove just falls a bit short. Now, lastly, we have Annabelle, which starts with the 2, damage improving secondary skills, archery and offense. Her specialty is pirate, so, you just attack with an extra stack of ranged creatures. You have archery to back them up. You do a lot of damage safely from afar. So it is, a cool kind of synergy over there. With that said, who else has such a synergy? Genova. And how many people like to play Rampart? Not many. With that said, quite a few people pick Annabelle. I'm personally not a fan of it, but, they're having success with it, so who am I to tell otherwise? And that more or less sums up the heroes available, their pros and cons. And with that said, we can actually get into the actual gameplay. Just like with any other faction, the main question you want to answer early, as early as possible in the game is what kind of army, source of army income you want to go for. So for Cove, you have 2 options, though one of them is a bit more common, I suppose. And, let's start with the more common one, which is flagging dwellings. Now, as far as dwellings go, you have basically 3 options: tier 5, tier 6, tier 7. Serpents are usually pretty much never ever the choice. Even upgraded, they're still not the best at anything. They're not flying, they're not the fastest, they're not the heaviest hitters, they're not the tankiest. While they do have an amazing specialty of poison reducing, the health of the target, they're still not good enough compared to something like Behees. You pretty much never go for them. That plus combined with the fact that their build path is atrocious, you're pretty much realistically impossible to build this on week 1. It requires a lot of resources. It requires a lot of prerequisites. It's just horrible. Similarly, tier 5, it's a ranged power stack. It's as tanky as paper. The first time you're gonna enter Utopia, the first time you're gonna do a bunker, most of your power stack is going to be gone. They're very similar to Necropolis Liches, I suppose. So all around, they're just not great. You're happy when you pick up a box because, it's tier 5 creatures, 15, 20 of them, so that's pretty amazing. But you don't want to focus your entire game around Sea Witches because of their tankiness. And again, always keep in mind that you're playing on a 1-minute timer. That means you just won't have the resources, time resources to actually babysit to get the most out of this power stack. So with that said, the remaining choice, by the process of elimination is Nyxes. With that said, you don't even need to do the process of elimination. Nyxes are pretty damn amazing. They have their issues, by far. They don't have much health, and they don't have much speed. But even with those taken into consideration, they're still an amazing power stack. Their specialty is huge, basically ignoring a percentage of opponents' attacking force, attacking skill. So that means the later the game goes on, they become better and better. So usually if going for the dwellings, you go for Nyxes. Lastly, one thing that is very crucial to mention is the build path for Nyxes, which is extremely easy, straightforward, and cheap. You only need to build Nest as a prerequisite. Nest costs 2 gems and 2 crystals. You start with 4 of both of those. That means on day 1 you can build double nests. Now if you want to build Nyx forts, It only requires to use some wood, not even that much, some ore, yeah, quite a bit, and some gold. Again, not even that much. Something like Necropolis Dread Knight building requires like 6k gold. So they are the cheapest tier 6 dwelling you can build out of all factions. The specific or the implication that comes out of this is that in most cases the preferred gameplay for Cove is going for Nyx Fort flagging on week 1 and double building them on week 1. In many other factions, double building on week 1 is completely out of the question. You know, you're in some factions you're struggling to build your power stack dwelling in your main on week 1. Something like, you know, building Minotaurs is a pain. Building Genies, Nagas is a pain. Building Beehies can be a struggle as well if you don't get the crystals. Building Dread Knights is very easy, but double building them is pretty much always out of the question. Oftentimes you don't even have the resources to double build on week 2. But Cove, you can consistently, reliably double build on week 1, which is really huge. That's a lot of army income right from the get-go, allowing you to do so much more on the map. With that said, you can also go for box gaming. Going through what kind of boxes you can get, like all of these boxes, you know, 1 to 5, they're kind of okay. Nymphs are really solid, you know, they do a lot of damage, you get a lot of them, they're very fast, they're sort of glass cannons, you know, something like Surprise from Conflux. With that said, they're equally as tanky, so the first time you enter Utopia, the first time you enter, you know, you try to do any type of break, like your Nymphs, your Oceans, they're probably just gonna die. Crewmates and Seamen, they have a lot of health, so they're decently tanky, they're very good. They're preferred meat, actually, for Utopias, for Cove, just because your other meat is your power stack, but they are the preferred meat. However, they're not like fast enough, they're not, you know, that crazy good to make for an amazing power stack, and just, you know, which could carry you into like the desert. So like you're happy picking up Oceanid and Crewmate boxes, but they're probably not the best power stacks. Same kind of goes for pirates. You want, you know, maybe a few pirates is kind of nice, maybe a few corsairs is kind of nice. Sea dogs are pretty amazing, they do a lot of damage, especially if you're playing Annabelle and you have archery to back it up. Their specialty is amazing, it's pretty much a ranged Mighty Gorgon Death Stare, so that is dope. The problem with them is, first of all, building them, you need a lot of resources. It costs, you need a blacksmith, then you need 10 wood for this, then you need 5 more wood to upgrade it. And the worst part is, if you want to upgrade Corsairs into Sea Dogs, you need 5 of all precious resources. And this is where the biggest power spike happens. So it's really, really wonky. And then there's also the fact that Sea Dogs are very, very squishy. I think I'm not even sure how much health they have, but definitely not much. So you need to babysit them, and due to those facts, like again, picking up a few boxes just enabling you to do stuff on the map is good, but you don't really want to go for a power stack of pirates. Similarly, Sea Witches and Sorceress, we've already went through them, so again, picking up a few boxes is amazing, but it's not going to be our power stack. We then arrive at the last creature, which you can get from the boxes, which is Stormbirds and Iocids. And these guys are amazing, just hands down. They are really squishy, true, they have like 8 defense, which I think like some tier 2, maybe even tier 1 creatures have the same defense. Sure, they have a bit more health, but even then compared to other tier 4 creatures, that's not the most. However, they have speed and insane damage. Especially the Iocids, when you upgrade the Stormbirds, they have the specialty of sort of attacking twice if they kill at least 1 unit. I believe that's how it works. They do a lot of damage, and they are so good that usually, even if you're going for Nyx Fort dwellings, if you have a good solid reason to believe that this box is going to be Stormbirds or Iocids, you still pick it up. They provide a lot of the damage, which is kind of missing in Cove. Like when you go for Nyx Forts, you have a really strong Never Dying power stack, which you can use very liberally. That's the word. But if you have some Iocids on the side, they just, supplement with extra damage, so they are really nice. And this is the possible box gameplay. If you can tempo off of Stormbirds, if you can tempo off of Iocids, you can have a better game than compared to just flagging Nyx Forts. Now with that said, your typical week 1 is obviously going to be deciding whether you want to go for Nyx forts or you want to go for boxes. So let's take a look at this specific biome. In this case, we have a starting box over here. So we're gonna probably pick up this box on day 1 and then probably do the nomads. And after that, honestly, like, this Nyx fort is so conveniently placed that I would still go for this Nyx fort. Now, after that, I would probably start heading and picking up some town. So if I went down here, there's obviously not much going here. But actually, like, this is looking like a potential tempo biome. Looking at the roads, there's, unless you go to your side town and find these 2 Nyx forts, you're not gonna find that many Nyx forts. You flag this one, you go down here, there's 0 Nyx forts. If you go up here, you find probably also 0 Nyx forts. But with that said, you have quite a few boxes available. So on day 1, you're pretty much always doing the skeletons, then you're pretty much always doing this, then you're probably picking up this, and then you're going down for like resources. You pick up a few black towers, that's going to be some stats. You might even go for this flail. Once you have this flail, you can go for this box, maybe this box, and maybe this box. Maybe find the Nyx forts then, but at that point you might just have too much of an army to actually bother with Nyx forts. So this biome, what we're looking at right now, could be a potential box gaming. It is, not the typical choice, not the most common one, but it's looking like it, just because several of your Nyx forts are multiple days off-roading. That's the only way to reach them. Now, let's just run another biome, just as an example. So in this case, we again have a starting box over here and a Nyx forts, visible on day 1. So that is kind of nice. So what we could do in this case is maybe go for, probably on day 1, hit this up. On day 2, maybe flag the ore. On day 3, we can potentially do even this box, which is a pretty big one. Like, pick up more army from here, then do this box, and then start heading down. Once we pick up this Nyx fort, we might, go over here and find absolutely nothing. But if we go to the top side, actually, funnily enough, this is again looking like a box gameplay. Just because how many Nyx forts have I seen? I see 1 here, and all the other Nyx forts, oh my god, look at this. You have 3 Nyx forts all the way down here. Like, this is an area of the map that you will pretty much never explore until the very, very late game, when you'll decide that you want to reach from Facture, you want to reach this town. Otherwise, you probably will never find these 3 Nyx forts. The other 3 Nyx forts, so we found 1 very conveniently positioned. Where are the other 2? Again, this one is super far away from everything, so that's 4 out of 6 Nyx forts, pretty much unreachable. And you have 1 here, which is also probably not something you're going to find, just because, when you see minimum on your screen, you probably won't find this. So this is looking like another tempo biome. I actually want to show another example. I just want to find like a biome where you actually go for Nyx forts and you're happy with that. So what do we have here? We have 1 Nyx fort that you could maybe find if you go for this wood. Another 2 Nyx forts completely away from any sign of civilization. 1 more away from any sign of civilization. There's 1 good Nyx fort. What the fuck is going on? Literally all the examples I'm showing are just box gaming. Well, yeah, so there you have it. While the preferred gameplay... Oh, this is a good Nyx fort. So while the preferred gameplay is flagging the Nyx forts, sometimes you just get shitty dwellings and you just go for boxes. And obviously sometimes you just get such amazing boxes. Like, if you find in your biome multiple boxes like this, 50 to 99 griffins guarding a Pandora's box and like nothing else. Well, in this case, black market, but imagine black market didn't exactly exist here. Trolls guarding a box. This is going to be, Iacids, Stormbirds. 50 to 99 Wolf Riders, maybe could be Stormbirds, like, it's possible, it's not guaranteed, but it's possible. What else? This could be Stormbirds, Iacids as well. So if you find multiple boxes like that, you can go for a Stormbird Iacid power stack and just, fuck the Nyx Force. Then again, like even when going for this complete tempo gameplay and just going off of boxes, the Nyx Force, they cost pretty much nothing to build, that I would still suggest building at least like one of these in your main, and then you will, by week 3 when you'll be looking to do like Utopias or go break, you will have, at least like 6-7 Nyxes, which for the low price that they cost, they're gonna do a great job at just tanking stuff. They are incredibly tanky, they ignore the attacker's attack skill, so they are able to take a lot of damage, a lot of retaliations. It's going to protect your Iacid Stormbird pack really, really well. But yeah, I think that more or less sums up everything. I'm thinking about the specifics of the faction. I wouldn't say there are that many. Like, I guess you could mention that captains don't level into knowledge that much. But it's kind of not like Barbarians, where Barbarians want to go kind of late game because of, Stronghold being the best late game faction. You don't push for late game, so you don't go for Bunker as frequently, so knowledge isn't as often such a big issue for them. It doesn't, have these implications. For late game, again, maybe emphasizing that Nyxes are very susceptible to kiting, due to their speed 7 only. So if you have only a Nyxes power stack and it's not prayed, it's not hasted from, Ogre Fist, and your opponent can just kite you for eternity, then once your anti-magic, presumably your anti-magic Nyxes, once your anti-magic runs out, he can just berserk you and then, finish you off. So there's that. Usually for a late game power stack, like Nyxes are amazing, without a doubt. But you do want some support, otherwise you're susceptible to this cheesy strategy. But apart from that, like there's nothing that crazy about captains. Their secondary skills are usually pretty decent. You start with a few dead skills, as any captain really. That is a bit annoying, not perfect, but it's not the worst either. You can still have a very solid skill tree despite having, tactics as your starting secondary skill. And yeah, like that's more or less it. So hope you folks, as always, found this enjoyable and informative. Let me know if you have any feedback. Other than that, just catch you guys in my streams. So yeah, cheers.